Big brands love to act like they're untouchable, like the cool kid in school who could never trip in front of the whole cafeteria. But spoiler alert, they do. And when they fall, it's glorious. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're counting down the top 10 most embarrassing product fails by big brands. Let's dive in, shall we? First up, we have a fail so monumental it has its own chapter in the history books of brand management. We're talking about Coca-Cola, the brand you'll find almost everywhere on the planet, except Cuba and North Korea. For decades, Coke was more than a drink, it was a cultural institution. It was nostalgia in a bottle, the fizzy taste of summer and holidays. But in the early 1980s, the bigwigs in Atlanta started sweating. Their eternal rival, Pepsi, was running a smash hit campaign called the Pepsi Challenge, where blind taste tests supposedly proved that people preferred the sweeter taste of Pepsi over Coke. It was a marketing dagger straight to Coke's heart. The board, panicking, came up with a bold, unprecedented, and ultimately boneheaded idea.
You know what people love? Our formula. You know what we should do? Burn it to the ground and start over.
So, in 1985, they did the unthinkable. They swapped the classic Coke for New Coke, a sweeter, smoother version that, let's be honest, tasted a lot like Pepsi. They were trying to win the battle by becoming their enemy. The marketing was a disaster. The brand identity was a mess.
The opening of the can is up to you.
They spent months building up the hype only to announce they were replacing the one thing everyone loved. The reaction was chaos. The public went absolutely ballistic. People hoarded the old formula like it was toilet paper during a pandemic lockdown. The New Coke story isn't just a fail, it's a masterclass in brand loyalty and what happens when you take it for granted. After just 79 days of this public revolt, Coke waved the white flag and brought back the original as Coca-Cola Classic. The original formula, the one they abandoned, was now a hero. And since we're already in soda territory, let's talk Pepsi. Coke's eternal sibling rival, watching from the sidelines with a bucket of schadenfreude. But you know what they say about those who live in glass houses? Or, in this case, those who sell glass like soda. In the early 90s, Pepsi looked at Coke's New Coke fiasco and thought, what if we remove the color? People will lose their minds. The 90s were all about purity and transparency, and Pepsi saw an opportunity. Thus, Crystal Pepsi was born, a clear cola marketed as pure, clean, and healthy. They were basically selling the idea that what you couldn't see couldn't hurt you, because apparently removing caramel coloring magically makes soda a health food. The ads were slick, with Van Halen's Right Now as the anthem. At first, people were curious. The novelty factor was off the charts. It was like drinking a soda made from bottled spring water from a glacier. But then they actually drank it. The taste wasn't awful, but it wasn't Pepsi, and it wasn't Coke. It was soda with an identity crisis. Customers found it unsettling. They wanted their cola to be brown. The subconscious connection between the color and the flavor was so strong that drinking clear cola just felt wrong. Sales tanked within a year. Crystal Pepsi vanished into the annals of corporate failure, only to be revived every few years for nostalgia junkies who apparently forgot what a weird experience it was.
Now, what goes better with soda than a burger?
Enter McDonald's, the undisputed king of fast food. In the mid-90s, the company was starting to get worried. They had cornered the kids' market with Happy Meals and playgrounds, but they were losing out on adults, the ones with the real money. So, they thought, what if we made a fancy burger for adults? What if we created something so sophisticated, so refined, that it would make grown-ups forget they were eating at the same place as Ronald McDonald? Enter the Arch Deluxe. This wasn't just a burger, it was a gourmet experience. It came with a quarter pound of beef, a potato-based bun, peppered bacon, circular onions, and a secret mustard mayo sauce. They spent a reported $300 million on the launch campaign, making it one of the most expensive new product rollouts in fast food history. The ads were aimed squarely at adults, featuring kids turning up their noses at the Arch Deluxe, with the tagline, "The burger with the grown-up taste." But here's the thing. McDonald's isn't fine dining. It's a place you go to for convenience, for comfort, for a cheap and predictable meal. You don't go there for sophistication. You go because it's 2 a.m. and you've given up on life. The brand promise of McDonald's is fast, cheap, and easy, and the Arch Deluxe was none of those things. It was more expensive, more complicated to make, and it completely confused their customer base. Customers weren't buying luxury from a clown mascot. The burger flopped spectacularly, becoming one of the most expensive fast food failures in history. All right, let's move from food to tech. Before the iPhone made Apple the king of the world, they had a few bumps in the road. And by bumps, I mean a device so famously bad it became a pop culture punchline. I'm talking about the Apple Newton. Released in 1993, this was Apple's attempt at a personal digital assistant. The pitch was pure sci-fi, a $700 tablet that promised to replace your diary, calculator, and maybe even your therapist. It was a cool idea, a glimpse into a future that we now live in. There was just one tiny microscopic problem. It failed at the one thing it was designed for: handwriting recognition. Write lunch at 12 and it would give you Lurch ate Elvis. This wasn't just a bug, it was a fundamental, unfixable flaw. On top of that, the battery life was abysmal. It was basically an overpriced brick. The public found it hilarious and frustrating in equal measure. Even the legendary TV show The Simpsons got in on the action. In a 1994 episode, a bully named Dolph tries to write "beat up Martin," but the Newton comically translates it as "eat up Martha." That one joke, more than any ad campaign, sealed the Newton's fate and haunted Apple for years. Next up, Amazon can deliver literally anything to your doorstep. Books, groceries, even an inflatable T-Rex costume, except a successful smartphone. In 2014, Jeff Bezos himself, standing on a stage like a modern-day Moses, proudly unveiled the Amazon Fire Phone. The gadget wasn't just a phone, it was a monument to gimmicks. It was packed with features nobody asked for, like dynamic perspective, a kind of 3D effect that shifted as you moved your head. The real star, though, was a feature called Firefly, which used the camera to scan objects and instantly find them on Amazon for you to buy. Basically, it was a pocket-sized Buy Now button masquerading as a phone. It was a product for a company, not for a person. Within a year, Amazon took a $170 million loss on the unsold units and quietly buried the project. To this day, the Fire Phone sits in the Hall of Shame.
Next up, we have Google, the company that knows more about you than your mom.
In 2013, they thought the future was on our faces, not in our pockets. They believed glasses could be futuristic spy gear for the masses. Enter Google Glass, a $1,500 wearable that lets you check emails, take pictures, and look like the biggest tool at Starbucks. The product was a triumph of technology and a spectacular failure of common sense. The problem was something called privacy nightmares. People hated the idea of being secretly recorded by someone wearing what looked like a tiny sci-fi camera on their head. It was a social landmine. Bars, movie theaters, and restaurants across the country literally banned them, calling users glassholes. People who wore them were constantly harassed and ridiculed. Google tried to market it as a device for explorers and creatives, but the public saw it for what it was: a creepy, socially awkward piece of tech that served no real purpose for the average consumer. We've roasted Apple and Google, so let's talk Microsoft. And you know they had a long-standing beef with Apple. In the mid-2000s, when Apple had the iPod ruling everyone's pockets with its elegant design and massive music library, Microsoft tried to fight back with the Zune. They had a single, simple goal: kill the iPod. On paper, the Zune was fine. It was an MP3 player with a few extra features. It came in cool colors, like brown, which to be fair was a bold choice. But in reality, the iPod was prom king, and the Zune was the kid bragging about his brown brick. It was a classic case of too little, too late. The iPod already had a massive lead, a loyal fan base, and an ecosystem that was miles ahead of anything else. Microsoft's big flex was a feature called squirting. No, not like that. It was Wi-Fi sharing. You could squirt a song to a friend who could play it 3 times in 3 days, thanks to frustrating DRM restrictions. Before iPhones ruled the world, Sony was a titan of consumer electronics. They had the PlayStation, they had the Walkman, they had the television sets in every living room. So they thought they had the next big thing: the Walkman phone. The concept was simple and, frankly, brilliant. Music player plus phone equals genius, right? It was a phone built around the music experience, a phone that promised to be the ultimate audio device. They were right about the concept, but tragically wrong about the timing. The phones were clunky, the storage was weak, and the interface felt ancient even at launch. They were banking on their Walkman brand recognition, but the phone itself felt like a half-hearted attempt. And then, just a few years later, Apple drops the iPod plus iPhone combo. They didn't just merge a music player and a phone, they revolutionized the entire industry. Sony's clunky Walkman phone didn't stand a chance against the sleek, elegant, and revolutionary iPhone. It was a good idea, just 5 minutes too late. And in the world of tech, 5 minutes can feel like a lifetime. All right, let's cleanse our palate with toothpaste. Colgate, the brand of minty smiles and dentists' approval, decided in the 1980s, why stop at toothpaste? Let's make frozen lasagna. Yes, Colgate beef lasagna. Now I want you to close your eyes and imagine this. You're walking down the frozen food aisle. You're craving a nice, warm lasagna. You see a box and it says, Colgate. Your brain immediately goes, am I about to eat toothpaste? Will this lasagna taste like mint? Will I get cavities after eating it? The psychological disconnect was so strong it was a work of art. Consumers couldn't separate the brand from the act of brushing their teeth. It didn't matter how good the lasagna was, which, by all accounts, was probably not great. The brand name itself was a repellent. The sales were, as you might expect, non-existent. The product was pulled from the market almost immediately. To this day, it's still studied in marketing schools as the ultimate case of brand extension gone horribly, horribly wrong. Finally, the fail that proves even the toughest brands have a soft underbelly. When you think Harley-Davidson, you think roaring engines, leather jackets, open roads, and a certain rugged scent of freedom and exhaust fumes. What you absolutely don't think is, I want to smell like a perfumed biker. But in 1994, Harley, in a moment of pure, unadulterated hubris, decided to launch a lifestyle collection, which included a fragrance line. The perfume was called Hot Road, a truly original name. It was marketed to women and men who supposedly wanted to smell like a leather-clad rebel, but in a bottle. The logic was that the brand was so strong, people would buy anything with the name on it. Turns out, they were wrong. The Harley-Davidson brand is built on a very specific, deeply ingrained subculture. You can't bottle that and sell it at a department store. A leather jacket? Sure. A bike? Absolutely. A perfume that smells like a midlife crisis? Hard pass. And that wraps up our list. So, what can we learn from all this? It's easy to laugh at these fails, to point and say, what were they thinking? But the truth is, every single one of these companies was trying to do something. They were trying to innovate, to grow, to adapt to a changing market. The problem is, they forgot the golden rule, know thyself. In a world where everyone is trying to be the next big thing, these stories are a powerful reminder that sometimes the best strategy is to stay in your lane. If you enjoyed this ride through brand disasters, hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and tell me in the comments, which brand fail do you think was the most embarrassing? Was it the minty lasagna, the brown brick, or something else entirely? Let me know.